Hi, welcome back to another episode of Flexwork Remote Live Podcast. We are joined with our guest today, Dustin Heiner, a real estate investor, author, and educator who founded Master Passive Income, a platform dedicated to teaching individuals how to achieve financial freedom through rental property investing. Dustin, pleasure to be here today. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
What's up, Jake? I'm super fantastic. In fact, as you mentioned, I invest in real estate, and that's how I became retired. I retired early, and what I like the term, instead of being retired early, successfully unemployed. That's the title that I really enjoy because it kind of shakes people up. Like, what does that mean? But yeah, I invest in real estate, bought a bunch of properties, and now just cash flow comes in, so I don't have to work anymore. And now I just, come on podcasts, talk to great people like you. But thank you so much for having me on the show.
That sounds like a dream life you're living right now. So I like how we know where you're at now. Let's take it back a few notches and let's hear the beginning of this story. Take me through how this all began, either whether or not your career even started in this direction or where did the trajectory begin to get you to the real estate?
Yeah, totally. So I got a story I got to tell you because this is what shoved me and made me become a real estate
Please.
investor. So I wasn't born into real estate investing. In fact, we were extremely poor. I had a two-bedroom house when I was born, but I was taught, just like we're all taught, this plan in our life that we're all taught. You go to school, you get good grades, and you take those good grades, and then you go to a college or university and get thousands and thousands of dollars into debt, and then you get a piece of paper called a degree, and then you go around to many different companies and try to get a quote unquote career, and then work 40 plus years of your life and then retire at 70 years old and hopefully live on 40% of what you managed to save that entire time working that job, is what I like to call it. It's called a just over broke job because you're living just over broke. So I'm doing that exact same thing. In fact, I get the most stable, secure job you can ever think of. I work for a local county government in California and doing technology. So California is not going away. Government's definitely not going away. And technology, it's not going away. So sit down desk job, great job. Now, I bought one rental property in 2006 and it started making me money without even working. In fact, the property was working for me and I knew I needed to become an investor. But you know what happens? Life starts getting in the way. And my wife and I started having children. And I stopped investing and just kept working. But this is what really shoved me and really got me into becoming an investor. So my wife and I started having kids. And by the time we had our fourth child, I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and all that good stuff, and bonds with the baby. Well, after 2 weeks, I go back to work. And in that same week, I go back to work on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog, and she says, "Dustin, would you please come to the office?" I said, "Sure." And I hung up the phone. I paused for a second. I thought, why in the world are they calling me the office? Like, this isn't normal. I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 is not a good sign. And so I shook it off. I said, there's no way that there would be any problems or like I get laid off or anything like that. So I get up and I walk down the hallway to my boss's office. And this hallway isn't very short. Sorry, it isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short. But every single step that I took, it felt like it got longer and longer and longer. It felt like my feet became lead bricks because the thought of potentially losing my job was starting to weigh down on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner. I see my boss's door. His door is closed, and I see his secretary there, super sweet, nice old lady. She says, "Dustin, would you please have a seat?" So I go and I sit down, and she's trying to console me with her eyes, kind of sheepishly grinning at me because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. Well, I'm sitting there and I started thinking about my life. This entire plan that I was taught and I'm following, if I get laid off right now, did I just waste my life? And then I thought, oh my goodness, we just had our fourth kid. If I can't provide for them, does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? So my hands get all clammy, my forehead gets all sweaty because the nerves of potentially losing my job starts crushing me. Then the door to my boss's office opens up, and out walks a coworker of mine with a piece of paper in her hands. She's noticeably distraught, noticeably upset. She's not necessarily crying, but you could tell her world has been rocked. She passes by me. My boss says, "Dustin, would you please come to the office?" So I get up and I go into his office and I get laid off. And this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off in the government, but I did. And this is the reason why I tell the story. So I take that layoff notice and I go back to my desk and I realize two things. Number one, I need to get another job. I need to be able to provide for my family. So really blessed. Praise the Lord to find another job in the same county. A different department wasn't having those budget issues. Check. Now, the second thing that I realize, I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody can take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I said, no longer will I ever tell anybody if I get asked a question. We all get asked a question. What do you do? I would reply with my job. Oh, this is my job. I work for the government doing IT. I would now reply every single time I get asked a question, I'm an investor. Now, it may still happen that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's not my part-time job. I'm a full-time investor. So fast forward the story. Started buying property after property after property, each one making me $250, $350, $400, $500 a month in passive income. Eventually, I had 30 plus properties and I didn't need to work anymore. So last quick part of the story, I went to my new boss, good boss and all, and I said, I'm laying you off. And, jokingly, and we both laughed. And he says, Dustin, what are you going to do? I said, I don't have to do anything. I own real estate that makes money for me. So the last part of the story, I would walk to and from my job a mile and a half every day. I've done it 1,000 times. This last time walking to my car, I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again. And everybody, I want you to realize, so if you're listening to this, I want you to realize your boss will never pay you what you are worth. In fact, you are worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. And this is how you'll know. They're paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money it takes money out of their pocket. If they paid you what you were worth, they'd go broke. So instead, what I suggest and what I love doing is creating cash flow or passive income from my real estate or the businesses that I create. And that makes me money every single month to be able to provide for my family. So I'll pause the story, Jake, because you probably got plenty of questions.
No, this is, first off, very inspiring. It's always inspiring for someone to understand I can make my life a lot easier to live with. And I think you realize when all your eggs were coming from one basket, this is kind of frightening. One question I thought of right off the bat, most viewers might be listening. You mentioned how you just started buying real estate. Now, to some people, especially with children, obviously financially, that's a difficult thing to do. Even someone who financially in a position to do that, it takes some guts to buy the right real estate. It's not all guaranteed. Talk about the process of, I guess, having the kids, you're in this flux, selecting the right money you have to invest in the right spots. What was that decision-making like for you?
Yeah, so it was in 2006 when I first started investing. I just got married. I didn't save any money growing up. My wife was taught to save, so she saved some money. And when we got married, about 3 to 6 months later, I said, hey, honey, I want to buy real estate. Can I take the money you saved to buy real estate? So I was really blessed. I think she had like $16,000. So in California, where I was living at the time, I bought a place in Ohio. This is 2006, before the market crash. And as the market was crashing, what was really interesting was that I made more money because sadly, people were losing their home in 2008, 9, and 10. That turned them to renters. But now getting quickly back to answer your question with that buying that first property, when I bought that first property with cash, I put cash down, got a mortgage, and then eventually I refinanced it, pulled the cash back out to buy more properties. And honestly, I've just been recycling that same money over and over again. And any money that I make from my real estate, I then use that to buy more real estate. It's called scaling. When you buy real estate, hopefully you scale your business to multiple properties. But to get financially, here's one quick thing I'll say. So in 2006, when I first started investing, I didn't know what I was doing. In fact, my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months. It was really, really bad. Wow. But if I would have hung my head and said, oh, this doesn't work, then I wouldn't be here today. But I realized that there's got to be a way to do it. So what I did was I started by building a business before I bought the real estate. And quickly, I'll give you an example. The financing, like you asked about, like how do you get the financing to do that? Well, I now don't use my own money to buy real estate. I use other people's money. And that is, in fact, I've taught thousands of students now. I have used personally 17 different ways to get financing to buy property. It could be your own money, but what if you had private money lenders? If you had hard money lenders, use a home equity line of credit, a business line of credit. I'm just quickly going through a couple things. I've even used a credit card. Kid you not, a credit card, cash advanced, bought real estate with it. It's not that financing is the hard part. In fact, everybody, and I, same thing. I happen to me too. We get stuck on the financing part because we think you got to get a mortgage and have a huge down payment and buy a property. In fact, In fact, I don't even spend 20% or 10%. I try as best I can to use other people's money. One quick example, because I want to get you to ask questions.
No, this is good.
So, in the financing compartment, so one of my students, his name is Benjamin. He's a pastor up in Sacramento, and pastors don't make much money. But he said, Dustin, I know I can't be a pastor forever. So, help me to invest in real estate. He had a property he bought back in 2017. I said, well, we can use that. So what we did was he got a home equity line of credit on that property, which means he could pull that cash out on the equity on that property. He bought a place in I think Georgia. Yeah, it was Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. That now house was free and clear. He refinanced it, pulled the cash back out, has a tenant in there paying that new mortgage, and they took that money and paid off his home equity line of credit. Now he has that to do it all over again. So when you think about financing or getting money to invest in real estate, there's so many ways to get financing. If you have a good deal, then you'll be able to find the money. Now, one quick last thing I'll say is people always ask, well, Dustin, right now is the worst time to invest in real estate. Interest rates are high, prices are high. How do you do it? And what I'll say is there's never a bad time to invest in real estate. There are only bad deals. Even in the best time, lowest interest rates, lowest prices, there are bad deals. We don't buy bad deals. So does that answer your question, or does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, like most people, like when you say financing and buying property, they think, oh, I don't have enough money for that. I don't have enough this. So I appreciate that in-depth explanation, because I think a lot of people realize that it's more feasible than you think it is.
One other quick thing, financing is also with finding properties. Whenever I have anybody new, and trust me, I went through the exact same thing. All my students, in fact, on my podcast, the Master Passive Income podcast, I've been doing it since 2016. And it's literally just a solo show, me teaching how to do this, because I quit my job. I had lots of people ask me how to do it, friends and family members. So I just started coaching them for fun because I had extra time and I enjoyed doing that. Then I realized, man, I want to help more people. So I wrote a book, gave that book out called How to Quit Your Job with Rental Properties. Very straightforward title, not creative at all. But then I started the podcast. Now, the reason why I bring this up, the most downloaded episodes on my podcast and the YouTube channel for Master Passive Income, it's how to find and finance, how to get money to buy properties and how to find the right properties. We just talked about financing, which I'll tell you, once you have a good property it's a really good deal, you're going to get the money. One quick example, I bought a 325 unit apartment complex about a month ago in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Fantastic property. We got it for like 60% of the market value. And we raised $10 million in 20 days because it was such an amazing deal. Money just flew in. Now, here's what I'm bringing up with the financing. The money's there. We just got to get a good deal. Now, the second question is, how do we find the right properties? Well, the biggest thing, you're going to say, man, Dustin, this is common sense. But I'm going to say, no, it's not, because people don't do this. The best way to find deals is to tell every single person that you're an investor. Just like if you're going to be a writer or you're going to be a musician, if nobody knows that you're a writer, then how are you ever going to get that writing out? Or a musician, same thing with investor or a business owner. You need to start telling the world that this is what you do. In fact, that's how I became so, I guess, well known as an investor. In fact, last 15 years, that's all I've ever told anybody. Anybody asks me, Dustin, what do you do? I'm an investor. So every single person who knows me at all knows me as an investor. From there, I get deals from other property managers, other investors, title companies, hard money lenders, wholesalers. Basically, people just say, hey, Dustin, I have a deal. Would you want to buy it? And the reason why this is so amazing is, give you an example, that 325 unit apartment complex. One of my general partners with me, I'm general partner on the deal. He was playing golf and he was telling everybody he's an investor just like me. Well, this deal came in his lap because he was playing golf with somebody that he told he was an investor, and then boom, 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 you now have a deal. So when you think about the hardest part for most people, and they don't realize this is the easiest part, hardest part is financing and finding. Well, when you get those two figured out, it's so much easier. The hard part is making sure you make money every single month thereafter to become financially independent. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Very fascinating. Golf course is where a lot of business is done too. So it's a good place to wear your title loud and clear.
It sure is. And you need to be good at golf just enough to not look foolish. You want to play just well enough. But honestly, I got so much business done in the golf course or on the golf course, it's absolutely amazing. As long as you could, hang in there and not look foolish, you're going to do well.
That's awesome. So take me along. I want to still go back. So you realize the passive income is where it's at. You're making money on your real estate properties. When does it start to snowball for you where you start to really realize, okay, I can really retire sooner than I even imagined?
That's a great question. So my first property, like I said, my property manager started stealing from me within 6 months. This is in 2006. I was like, what is going on? And then I was following those quote unquote gurus back in 2006. It was those late night infomercial guys. They say, I'm coming to your town, free 2-hour seminar. Then you go there. It's great. You feel like it's great. And then they said, now run to the back. It's normally $1 million, but it's like $20,000 today. So got suckered into one of those. But I took what little they taught and implemented, but my property manager started stealing from me. And what I learned out of that was you need to become and I like my shirt is you need to become an income builder. And when you have a business, you do not go into business to lose money. In fact, if you go into business to lose money, you're not going to do well. In fact, you'll go out of business. And so just like in any type of business, you want to build a business first. Let me give you a quick example. Yeah. And this is how you scale. Because if you're a mom and pop, you have one property, you're doing all the work, you have 4 properties, you're doing all the work, your time is limited. Eventually, you're going to be pulling your hair out. You can't do it. But what we do is we build a business. So let me give you a quick example. Let's say you are starting a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines, all the good stuff. Well, you would not sign a lease on a location, set a box of candy bars in there, open the door, set a box of candy bars in there. You go out of business in 2 seconds. But what you would do is you would build the business first. You get the gondolas, so there's shelving units, all the candy bars go on, the countertops, cold storage, bank accounts, cash registers, insurance, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Same thing with real estate investing. We build the entire business, get everybody that's ready to work in our business, and then we buy the property that is our inventory. In fact, I have 30 plus single family homes, short-term, mid-term, long-term properties. I have 750 apartment units. I have hotels I invest in. So with all these, I do not buy properties anymore unless I already have a business that's going to run it perpetually and make me money. But one quick last thing I'll say is, I said this earlier, you don't go into business to lose money. In fact, a lot of people that in 2008 went bankrupt because they were hoping for appreciation. They were hoping for the value to go up. Just like you don't go into business. Let's say you're going to sell a candy bar. Let's say you knew you could sell a candy bar for $1 all day, every day. You could sell it for $1. Well, if you could buy it for 50 cents and sell it for $1, you'll make 50 cents. But you would not buy it for $2, hoping it'd go up to $3, but you could only sell it for $1. You'd lose $1 every time. You don't go into business to lose money. That's why I say, if you're an income builder, what you're going to do is you're going to build a business that makes you money. Now, the quick last thing I'll say about the money aspect, let's say you had 50 cents to buy a candy bar, sell it for $1. But let's say you did not even have 50 cents, but it cost you 25 cents to borrow the 50 cents. You're out of pocket 75 cents. You sell it for $1. You make 25 cents every single time. That's what it's like with real estate investing. We borrow money from other people, buy real estate. The tenants pay for our mortgage. In fact, I don't pay for my mortgage. I don't pay for my taxes. I don't pay for my property manager repairs. I don't pay any of that. Like, I don't have to get a job to pay that. My tenants pay for all that, and I make the passive income. So quickly getting all the way back to scaling to where now I'm financially independent, I just realized if I bought one property that made me $500 a month, that's $6,000 a year. I'm like, well, that's fantastic. Just scale it from there. One property at $500 a month, that's $500. But if I had 10 properties, that's $5,000. That's $60,000 a year. If I had 20 properties, that's $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year. And that's without working. That's other people doing the work for me. So I realized, build a business, become an income builder where I'm making sure I'm making money every single month, $500 a month in passive income from every property, and then have that business run perpetually for me.
Awesome. I wrote everything down. I'm going to implement it tomorrow. So thank you very much for the secret sauce. It's very inspiring. It really is. The way you're able to break it down and just think about it logically is no reason why the results speak for themselves. So along the way, you mentioned as you're finding more success, people are starting to really take notice and want you to help them out, consult them. So that's when you founded the Master Passive Income. You want to talk about the foundation of that and when you really took your consulting and tutoring to the next level?
Yeah. So what was fun was I just started giving away all this information from my podcast to the books, the YouTube channel, even social media, like just giving away because I make my money through real estate. That's where I make my money to feed my family, put a roof over our heads. And so as I was just giving like my book, I literally give away my book now, How to Quit Your Job in Rental Properties. If you go to my site, masterpassiveincome.com, you get my book. And same thing with, I have a free course. Actually, would you mind if I just shared with everybody that I just give them the course for free?
Yeah, please. Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course, all one word /free course, I'll give it to you. You could even text the word rental, RENTAL to 33777. Text rental to 33777. I'll give you my course. And it's just giving all this stuff out. Now, what was interesting was people started asking me for my time. They say, hey, Dustin, you got all your free stuff. Can you now coach me? And I asked my wife, I said, hey, honey, should I start coaching people for free? And she said, no, don't do that. If you're going to do that, stay home, homeschool the kids with me. In fact, my wife's amazing. We have 5 kids. She homeschools all of them. So she wanted me to stay home. I said, well, I guess if people want my time, then I'll start coaching them. So now what's great is my coaching has developed students who now are successful. And now my students are now coaching here at Master Passive Income. We have a conference called Income Building Live, where we bring together hundreds of real estate investors, just as best as we can, connecting people, helping them become income builders is my term. But with that, it was, how much stuff can I give out for free? Because my goal is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate.
That's awesome. It's very powerful, paying it forward to and getting people on your team to also reap the benefits for this, and offering the free book. Most people in today's world, it's the what's the catch, but you seem so genuine. There's nothing, any part of me asking what the catch is, because I can sense you just genuinely want to help people.
Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate, what's so terrific? I've got, I don't know, at least a dozen people working with me in Master Passive Income, from coaching to technology to communications. They all came from my students. They're literally my students that have grown in building of their own business, investing in real estate, that they say, hey, Dustin, I just want to help you out. In fact, my coaches, they say, Dustin, I love the vision of helping 1 million people. I'm like, that's great. Let's help even more people out. So I really appreciate you saying so. If anything, here's one thing that I've learned. The more people that I serve in my life, the better my life gets and the better their life gets, the more money they make. And in the end, I make my money through real estate. So it's like, this is just all gravy, because what was interesting, when I bought my first property, I felt an accomplishment. I got a great accomplishment back in 2006. And then I felt like I needed more accomplishments. Like I needed to get more and more properties. In fact, after 30 plus properties, like, man, this is great. But I didn't necessarily feel fulfilled. When I quit my job, I didn't feel fulfilled. It was an accomplishment. But when I helped my first student buy their first property, it wasn't my accomplishment. It was theirs. I felt fulfilled. I felt like, man, I helped another human being get what they wanted. And now, as best I can, I chase that every day, because every single time somebody says, thank you so much, now I've changed my life, I quit my job, or whatever it might be, I feel like I'm blessed because I was there helping them along the way.
That's awesome, and that's powerful. I think the greatest fulfillment we could get is helping people. I agree, and I relate to that as well. So you're helping people, you're teaching. Obviously, you're going places you didn't imagine you'd go. Talk about some of the other things you got to experience along the way. I know you imagined you've spoken other places, you've taught. Talk about the journey this has brought you to.
Well, the biggest thing that I've found is the freedom. And when I say freedom, there's different freedoms levels, and everybody, when you're going through life, hopefully you're going to go through each one of these levels and get to the last one. What I love first is a money freedom of money, to not have to worry about money, not have to worry about bills, not have to worry about a mortgage or car payment, or even if you could pay for food. So having money freedom. Now that money freedom leads into the second one, which is a time freedom. Now you have enough money to free up your time. Imagine you having 40 plus hours of your life back every single week to play with your kids, to develop a new hobby, to do whatever you want. Or I love creating businesses. So now I have more, like 3 other businesses now that make me money. So money leads into time, a time freedom to do whatever you want, travel the world, whatever. Then that time freedom leads into a relationship freedom. Now you have the time to go back to all your relationships that might have suffered that entire time building the business, real estate, investing, and all that sort of stuff. And then you make your relationships solid. Now, money leads into time. Time leads into relationships. The last one is where I try to live. And everybody, I encourage you to get there, is a service freedom, where you're now free to serve as many people as possible. I've learned this, that the more people that I serve, the more money that I make. But the great thing is, because I'm serving them, the more money they make. It doesn't have to be a win-lose scenario. It should be a win-win-win every single time you do that. Because if you look at life as a scarcity mindset, basically, there's not enough to go around, the world's out to get me. Well, it's going to be really hard for you if you start having a mindset of abundance, where you're saying it's so abundant, the world's not out to get me. In fact, the world's out to help me. How can I help more people? You will actually get so much more. You'll make more money. You'll actually have people that just say, Dustin, I cannot thank you enough because my life changed. Or Jake, you have changed my life. This is what I want, and you helped me do this. But I realize money leads into time leads into relationships, and then relationship leads into service. And now the only thing that I ever do now is in the service legacy, because I have the blessing and the benefit of having the money taken care of, my time and relationships taken care of. Now I get to serve people. But here's the great thing, Jake. I make so much more money when I live in the service legacy.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. And some might say, like myself, I believe in karma. I believe in giving good out to the universe, and the universe gives back to you. And I think that's what we're seeing in your hands right now. So that's awesome. You mentioned you expanded a little bit into some other businesses. I'm curious where else this journey has brought you to.
So what I love is the idea that everything in my life revolves around real estate. When I say that, meaning I invest in real estate. I've been doing it since 2006, lots of properties. But then at the same time, there's byproducts of that. And the term that was a long time ago brought up was selling your sawdust. You know, if you have a lumber mill that you're cutting up wood, and there's byproducts that you would normally just throw away and you have to pay money to throw away as the sawdust. Well, if you figure out a way to resell that, figure out a use case for that. So for me, with my investing in real estate, number one is my knowledge, how I've done it before. People were wanting to learn how to do it. So I just started helping people. And so that's part of the business, is the coaching arm of Master Passive Income, where we just bring people in. If they want help, hey, we're here for you. If you wanted, you get everything for free. In fact, just for my free course, I shared it one more time, text the word rental to 33777. Just from that free course, I get so many people say, Dustin, I invested just from your free course. Or my podcast. People say, Dustin, I have 400 plus episodes. Now. I've been doing it since 2016, just me, solo show, teaching how to do this. I binged every single episode, and now I'm investing because of just your free stuff. Now, fast forward now, it's now coaching is if you want a little bit more help, like the fast track, if you want somebody to help you along the process. So that's Master Passive Income. Then I also have an event arm, or like a mastermind live in-person event. We have hundreds and hundreds of people coming to our events. And so that's another thing, is basically teaching as well as connecting investors together. Another company I have is a software company that helps investors to analyze deals, to find deals, to make sure you're making money in deals. It's called Income Builder. That's why my shirt is Income Builder, incomebuilder.io. And that's a software company. It's like, I know what investors need because I'm an investor. My students are investors. Let me develop a software that I don't think is really good out there. I don't think there's one like it, or I can do it better. And so now I just have that software company that's now making money for me, but it helps investors to make so much more money than I could ever charge them.
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, you seem very grateful and just happy to be where you are. Obviously, you've worked hard in your position where you've earned the happiness, but talk about any adversity you've gone through to been here. Oftentimes, someone in your situation will remember the hard times. I know you mentioned you didn't grow up with much money, and the situation wasn't ideal. Do you think about the bad times to lead you to the good times now? Reflect upon how far you've come.
So yeah, the hard times or the problems, things that come up, have definitely, and I think it does for everybody. If you don't learn from your failures or your mistakes, then you're really missing out. You can only learn so much from wins. In fact, I played college football growing up. So played football my entire life. I remember the losses so much more than the wins, even though, winning championships and stuff like that, it was like, man, this was so good. But the losses really stick home because you learn from them, and hopefully everybody learns. So for me, when I started investing in real estate, So in 2006, before the crash, I started, and I love this statement, or that's more of a proverb or a saying. A smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from other people's mistakes. So I was looking at other people in 2008 where people were going bankrupt. It's like, let me learn from their mistakes. Number one, their mistake was investing for appreciation or buying, hoping that the value goes up. No, I invest for income. No matter if the market goes up, if the market goes down or sideways, I make money because the rents every single month come in. So that's number one, is I try to learn from other people's mistakes. And one mistake was they did not invest to build income. That's number one. But number two, my big mistake was I didn't build a business and I had my property manager start stealing from me because I didn't know what I was doing. Imagine like that analogy where I gave the convenience store. You build everything out, you have lots of money into the business, 20, 30, $100,000 into it, and you see somebody across the road and you say, hey, you got a pulse, come on in here, manage my company, manage my money, manage my employees, manage my inventory. You wouldn't do that. You'd interview lots and lots of people before you found the right person. So what I did was I realized that I needed, as a business owner, would interview the right people, not just take them at their word that they were good at their business. So now we interview many, many people over and over again. Eventually, the best ones, like property managers, contractors, roofers, inspectors, we interview lots of people, and then we make sure we select the best one to be in our business. One quick last thing I'll say, what a lot of people, and this is why I did this, but everybody does this too. We follow TikTok gurus and they say, just buy a property and it'll work its way out. Well, what happens is people will buy a property, spend thousands of dollars to buy it, spend thousands of dollars to fix it up, find a tenant, and then try to find a property manager. And this happens all the time. Property manager gets on the phone and say, hey, property manager, I bought this property. Will you manage it? And they say, no, I won't manage it because I'll get shot there. Well, you no longer have an asset. You have a liability now. Instead of doing that, if you build a business, this is my big lesson that I learned, a big failure that I learned. If you build the business first, instead of calling a property manager and saying, will you manage it? After you bought it, you say, property manager, I'm looking to buy this property. Tell me how much it would rent for? What's the vacancy factor like? What's the clientele like? Will you manage it? What's a rent? If they say no, they would not manage it, then you don't waste your time and energy and money buying that property. You have them tell you which properties are good, which areas are good, and which ones to buy because you're going to be managing it forever. So those are the big lessons that I learned the hard way and now implement that into my business. Now coach, thousands of people now how to do it.
That's awesome. So you played college football growing up. Where'd you play football at?
I did.
Yeah, where'd you play?
Fresno State.
Oh, wow. So a lot of people, like successful people like yourself, usually you do have different hidden skills and talents. And as a sports lover and athlete myself, or former athlete in high school soccer, you obviously were taught a lot of discipline and camaraderie. And do you attribute any of that like rigorous schedule into the person you are today as a professional?
Yeah, definitely. So when I played at Fresno State, I walked on, not that big. I'm only like 5'8", 5'9", and I played running back. And I walked on, and it was the hard work that got me on the team. Like I worked harder because everybody else had so much more talent than me. I just was a hard worker, and with that hard work, got good at what I was doing. And so what I found is when you not just working hard, that's not the right way to say it, but being diligent in what you're supposed to be doing and just consistently doing what you're supposed to do in investing. Like I knew once I had a repeatable business, meaning I invest in 5 different states now: Ohio, Texas, Arizona, Tennessee, and Indiana. In every single time, because I had a repeatable business that I created, all I needed to do was find a new city, build that business there, and be diligent in making sure I follow every single step that I've developed and now coach all my students. But for me, it was being having perseverance, push through the tough times, and being diligent to continually push, even though it might be hard.
Yeah, you could see that. You especially walk on too. You've facing adversity and determination. I'm sure those traits carried well into your professional life because it takes a lot of courage too, and it's very valiant of you.
Yeah, totally.
So right now, where you're at, obviously, I'm interested in what your day to day looks like. you're successfully unemployed. Tell us, like, walk us through what a normal. It seems like you're the type of guy where you wake up Sunday through Saturday, and you probably don't even know what day of the week it is. Is that safe to say?
That's very, very true. Um, because my personality is I always like to know what time it is. Just it's a whatever running clock in my head, so I do know. But here's my normal day. I wake up whenever I want. I don't even have an alarm clock. I make sure that I don't, but I still wake up when the sun comes up. I go to the gym and I come home, hang out with the family, come on podcasts, and talk to great people like you because I have real estate that makes me money. And then the other businesses that I own, they say the software company, incomebuilder.io, that is a system that runs on its own. It does it because it's computer software and it works on its own. All the coaching, I have students that do the coaching now. The courses that I have that shown thousands of people how to do it. It's all as best I can automated or passively. So now in fact, I'll say this on my calendar today. There's one item, and it was this podcast interview. Nothing else on my calendar, and I like it that way because I don't have to do it. I can take a nap whenever I want, and that's how I build my life. Is I'm very easygoing, and I just want to go to the gym, hang out with the family, go on a couple podcasts, help people to invest in real estate.
Preach. I think a lot of people are going to say, teach me. That's great. So you kind of like, in terms of your work and maintenance with your properties, you can do as much as you want there. That's what you're kind of, the way you've laid it out is you have people running it and you can check in when you want, but your life is really successfully unemployed.
Well, totally. And I'll give you one even more. I hire the right people, so I don't even have to check in on them. Now, they do report to me. I get property management statements all the time, and I hire the right property managers, the right contractors, and fire the ones that are bad as fast as I can. But here's a great thing. So a lot of people have heard of the book, The 4 Hour Work Week. It's a good book. Premise is how to make your life so you can work 4 hours a week. Well, in my opinion, working 4 hours a week is for suckers. I don't want to work 4 hours a week. I don't even want to work 4 hours a month. I maybe work 30 minutes a month on all my properties. I got the property statements, go through them, make sure everything looks good, put them away, and go back to doing whatever I want. Now, one quick thing I'll say is I've now taught my 16-year-old daughter, my oldest daughter, now we have 5 kids. My 16-year-old daughter now, she gets the management statements, puts them in our accounting system, makes sure everything looks good, and lets me know if there's anything I need to know. But she takes care of all that now. So I don't even work 30 minutes a month. I have my daughter now doing it. But when you build it right, you have the right people working in it, then hopefully you're going to make sure that they're doing the right things. You give them the right systems, procedures, and processes so that they run it the way you want it. And then your property works for you, as well as the people that are running the property make sure that it's going very well.
So that's the goal for life. I think as society, and I'm going to ask you a question. I don't think there's an answer to it. I don't know what answer you'll have, but how can we get everyone to focus on living and not waiting until their 60s to retire? Again, I know financially speaking, most people aren't in the position to do that. Most people aren't in the position to explore trying to do that. But I've often struggled with this idea of, I'm 31, I'm several years into the 401k and learning about the finances. And, people say you got to invest in future, Jake. And I said, 31-year-old Jake wants the money now. I don't care about 60-year-old Jake with this money. 60-year-old Jake's not guaranteed. Life isn't guaranteed. How do we get more to this life you're living? Obviously, you're very tactical and you're all, 1% of someone who made it happen. But how can people enjoy this more,
So I started investing back when I was 26 years old. Yeah. I started investing. And I had the idea of delayed gratification. That means putting off for the future things that you want now, but putting off to the future because they're going to be so much better. I'm so glad I did. In fact, it took me 8 to 9 years to eventually quit my job, become successful employed because I had enough real estate. Because I said every penny that goes to something else that's not real estate is another minute, another hour, another day, year, whatever, before I can quit my job or become financially independent. So I delayed that gratification, fancy cars or, whatever, traveling the world. Now I do all that stuff now because I have that delayed gratification. Now, one quick thing also add to it as well. So the delayed gratification, you put off for the future good things because short term it's going to be pain, but in the end it's going to pay off. And so when I was 37 years old, praise the Lord, I quit my job and never going to need another job again, which is just amazing. Now, with the delayed gratification, I want to make sure that I have income coming in that no matter what happens, even if I pass away, God forbid, my wife will still be taken care of. My kids will still be taken care of because I have that income coming in. And what I've seen is a lot of people start saying, well, Dustin, I'm already 65 years old. And, should I start now? I say, well, here's my answer. I ask the question, when is the best time to plant a tree? Well, the best time was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. If you don't plant that tree today, then 20 years from now, you're going to be looking back and say, oh man, I was listening to that podcast with Jake and Dustin, and I wish I would have started investing 20 years ago. No, you don't want to be that person. You want to be the person that says, I'm so glad 20 years ago, I was listening to the podcast and I decided to make a change today because now my life is so much better and so much different. So here's my big perspective. You don't wait to buy real estate. A lot of people are saying it's not the best time. Interest rates are high, prices are high. No, you don't wait to buy real estate. You buy real estate and then you wait. Over time, it's a fact. Every 15 years, real estate doubles in price. So if you buy something now, 15 years from now, it should double in price. And usually, I can attest, I started in 2006, my properties have doubled at least, and then some. So what I'm saying, there's never a bad time. There's only bad deals. But what you do is you buy real estate and then you wait.
I like that. And I think also to that point, I think most of our youth in this country and curriculum should be introduced to investing at a young age. Most kids don't really care about the periodic table of elements. Maybe an investing course would do majority right, but that's another discussion.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too is my kids, I've been coaching people for a very long time, and my kids have seen it. In fact, my kids edit my podcast. They edit the podcast and do it. So they've grown up in it. They've learned. My daughter, who's now 16, she's the oldest. 3 months ago, she bought her first rental property. Oh, wow. Now, I helped her. I coached her throughout the process, but she took her savings. We analyzed the properties and bought her first property. And so every single one of my kids, hopefully before they're 16 or when they're 16 or earlier, buy their first property. And so that is a huge goal that all of my kids have because they want to beat their sister. So a couple of them, I want to buy them by 15 and so on and so forth. But honestly, my daughter being able to buy this now, 15 years from now, she's 16, when she's 30, this property will double in value. Plus she'll make all the passive income and she'll also buy more properties. Same thing with all of my kids.
It's genius. It really is. It seems like a simple solution for the youth is really just less TikTok, more investing. Cause it's,
I would agree.
It's the way
totally
it is,
agree with
with
that.
the cost of living and multiple income households, things have changed. You need money coming in from other avenues, unfortunately. So let's talk about the future. Your present's pretty good. I have to admit, it's very good. You've earned it. Where do you see yourself in the future?
Man, I don't know. Cause if you would have asked me this maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, I'd say, I'm still doing, coaching people. I'm still doing live events. I'm still doing software. I'm still doing all that sort of stuff. Well, honestly, I do what I find is fun. That's basically what. So if it stops being fun for me, I don't need to do it. I don't need to work a job. I don't need to do. I do this all because it's fun. And so if in the future it gets to be where coaching is getting a little more troublesome, or if I want to just, in fact, my wife and I moved to Tennessee. We live just outside of Nashville. From Arizona, we moved here because we would like to get more acreage and maybe have a farm and have cows and all that sort of stuff, which that might take more time. And so who knows, I might have more fun doing that. In the end, right now, it's how do I help as many people to invest in real estate? My goal is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. And as I'm going, I'm another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, who knows? I might still be doing this. In the end, it's just the million people is it's a mark that I know I can never hit, but it gets me out of bed. It gets me out of bed to do this over and over again, go to podcasts and just give away all this sort of stuff. Because in the end, I found the more people that I serve, the better my life gets and the better their life gets. But I would say, who knows? As long as it's fun, I'm going to keep doing it.
It's powerful. I think every existing living organism should chase what they like to do and what finds them fulfillment, as long as it's legal and not hurting anyone. But that's the goal. That's the name of the game. So, I think you answered the question. What is Dustin? Dustin is, you are an investor, but who is Dustin? I know you mentioned fun. What do you like to do for fun? Who is the real you? When someone asks you who you are, you say, I'm an investor. And they say, what else are you? What do you answer that with?
I would say if I were to boil everything down, I read the Bible every single day. In fact, I read it multiple times a day. So if I'm going to say who I am, I'm a Christ follower. That's what I believe, that because the Bible's true, I follow Christ and I'm a Christ follower. So everything that I do is a means to an end to glorify God and hopefully help people to hear the good news of Jesus Christ. So if I'm going to boil and that first, then an investor, then at the same time, I really enjoy health, or exercise, and go to the gym 5 times a week. I hang out with my family. We travel the world. So it really just comes to now, because I have so much freedom of money, time, relationships, and service now, is really whatever I deem as being like, this is what I want to do. Does that make sense? Like this, I can do this now. But first, being a Christ follower. Second, being an investor. Obviously, being a dad, being a husband first, then a dad, 5 kids. But as best I can, I'm trying to just share with as many people how to invest in real estate and change their life.
You are ever evolving. That's what you are.
Totally.
That's the way we should be. That's great. Last question I want to hit you with is I want to give you the opportunity to say, talk to younger Dustin, talk to anyone in your situation who maybe is not in a happy financial place. They're not liking their job. Maybe they like their finances, but they don't like their job. What is your advice to someone, particularly youthful or older? How do you maximize the most of your life and enjoy this precious time we have?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I would say, 2 things. Number one, the most expensive thing you will ever spend is time. Time is the most expensive commodity you will ever spend. You can't earn, make, create, or do it to get any more time. It's always fleeting. In fact, if you went to Warren Buffett, the richest man probably right now, Elon Musk, if you say, hey, I'm 20 years old, you're 80 years old, Warren Buffett, and you say, how about you give me, it's not possible, but just think through this, like, this little thing with me. So you say, I'm going to give you my 20 years old and you become 20 years old. Like you change spots and spots. I become 80 years old. I get all your wealth. I get everything. And you become 20 years old again. He would take that in a heartbeat. Like literally, he wouldn't even have to think if he could become 20 years old again. And it's not the money that really counts. It's where you are in life and who you are. And so what I found is that time is precious. You're going to spend it. You can't make any more of. And at the same time, if you're working a JOB, that just over broke job, like I said, you are selling your life away, because our time, the culmination of our time is our life. And so if you're selling an hour for a paycheck, you're selling your time. Eventually you're selling your entire life. I just don't think retiring at 70 years old after working your entire life and then trying to retire or live the rest of your life and try to enjoy the rest of your life. You might die 2 years. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. And so what I think of is, if tomorrow's not guaranteed, let me put delayed gratification. I talked about this a little bit before. Let me make sure that I put off good things so I can, as best I can, make my life better now so that in the future I can become financially independent. So getting all back to what it comes down to, stop selling your life to somebody else. Stop selling your time working for somebody else. Try to get passive income. That's where you work one time, you get paid over and over and over again. Like my podcast, I have on the Master Passive Income podcast, I have sponsors that come on my show and they pay me money because they want to reach my audience. And that's passive income, because I've already done it once and I'll make money over and over again. So my suggestion, stop getting active income, selling your life, get passive income and get your life back.
I like it. And I agree with that. All we have is time. And everything is a gift. So make sure you're allocating your time to everything you want to do. That's a powerful message, and I appreciate it. Do you want to shout out anything you're working on or doing, or your social media handles? Now's the time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely get my free course. Like, I just want you to invest. That's absolutely it. Masterpassiveincome.com/free course, or text the word rental to 33777. But yeah, so I love how I've been actually working a little bit harder on social media. So on Instagram, you can DM me on there. I love chatting with people. The Dustin Heiner, Dustin Heiner. And it legitimately didn't buy any followers, just hit over 100,000 followers on Instagram. And like I said, didn't pay for any bots to do it. So it's a lot of work. My goodness, social media is a lot of work. But yeah, you can follow me on there. I'd love to chat with you. I just want to help as many people as possible.
Very inspiring. The world could use a lot more people like you. And yeah, it's great. People with money and position of power just want to help. I think a lot of people can learn from that. Well, thank you very much, Dustin Heiner. And that's another episode of the FlexWork Remote Live Podcast. We thank you for your time and hope everyone got some good words out of this and can continue sharing your message. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jake.